Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another bonus edition of the Missing Links post-game live stream podcast thing. I'm Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage, and this is going to just be a continuation of getting guests on here to talk about how kind of ridiculous this Lynx team has been this season. So Noa Dalzell joining me. How's it going? Noa Dalzell is muted, so she said something very, very influential, and now she's going to say it again. Noa, how's it going?
What I said in earnest was, thank you for having me, and that there are very few teams that I enjoy talking about more than the Lynx, so happy to be here.
Yeah, have you become like a Lynx fan yet, or are you still doing the like objective media thing?
So I struggle a little bit with like, this is my thing. If you're covering the entire league in two leagues and players, like you just have to try to fight biases towards like certain players that you like. I don't really feel like I ever have teams that I dislike. Like I'm not like, oh, I hate the Mystics. Like why? Like that's just like a very random. Like some teams are just less exciting. My last podcast was a Mystics podcast. That wasn't actually a stray. But
I was gonna say hating the Mystics. They kind of have enough going on.
But I will say, like, you definitely find yourself, and maybe some people don't, but like when I cover a series, I definitely find myself being like more connected to one team's journey. And you want to make sure that doesn't inform, like if you have a vote, you don't want to have that impact you. You don't want to have that impact like your questioning, your articles. But like, I don't know, maybe this is like the wrong take, but that's just been my experience. Is that I find myself, I'll watch a college game 5 minutes into it, and I find myself more connected with one team right away. And then it's just about like fighting through that, you know. But in the Lynx's case, in the 2024 finals was my first real exposure to that team. And I covered the Connecticut Sun, so when they met in the conference finals or the, you know, I was like, damn, I covered the Sun, but like this Lynx team is awesome. The personalities, I love covering Cheryl, Courtney Williams. I think if I had to, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but she's probably my favorite player in the league. Like I just find her game and her whole persona like so electric. And then, yeah, since then I've been on the Lynx bandwagon. And so it's funny because I thought this year I was like, damn, like this is gonna kind of be a gap year for the Lynx. Same as covering my Celtics last year, and sometimes unpredictable things happen.
It is kind of, I mean, it is kind of eerily similar to the Celtics season where it's like, oh, no Tatum. They have a lot of different pieces in here. They go out and get like, you know, I mean, obviously Josh Minott didn't work out, but like Luka Garza would have thought he would be a kind of a rotation piece. And then, you know, you're just getting a generational talent back midway through the season. So this is going to be a new thing that I'm starting to do with guests because I did it with Sirit and got a good answer and I enjoyed it. But like, I'm surprising you with this because I wasn't going to do it. And then I just decided right now I am. But like when you were growing up and like developing like your basketball fandom and like kind of how you enjoy the game, like who are the players that kind of left the biggest impact on
you? It's really one. Like there were a lot of players that I liked, but Steph Curry was like the one player.
Okay.
And you know, I was like in high school when the Warriors like dynasty was beginning, and I remember being like, I would just watch like Steph highlights like over. I mean, I can't do anything that Steph can do, but in theory, that was what I was going for. I didn't start watching the WNBA till later. Like I would watch women's college basketball, but then not the WNBA, which I think is the experience of a lot of people. And I do wonder, like, in hindsight, I'm like, I was like a girl obsessed with basketball. Like, why was nobody like recommending the WNBA for me? Like, even like with like my family and stuff, we would always watch NBA games. And so I've gone back and found players, and I'm like, damn, I would have like been so into watching, you know, certain players play. And even growing up, like watching the Celtics, like it wasn't really any Celtics player that I was like, this one player is like the one that it was Steph for sure.
For me, it was Jason Kidd, always Jason Kidd. Like he was the number one, like loved him in Phoenix, loved him in New Jersey, went to Dallas and I became a Mavericks fan. Like I was the LeBron fan before LeBron fans. Like I just kind of rooted for whatever team Kidd played for. And then it was always just like random players in the league. So like Allen Iverson, Kobe, obviously Steve Nash, I like respected, but I'm a Jason Kidd truther, so Steve Nash has a special place in my heart. And then like past that, it's funny that you mentioned you didn't like any of those like Celtics players. Like
I like them. I didn't have like a fixation with anyone.
Right.
Rondo a little. Like, I'm so not a good passer that it was like part.
I loved Rondo, and I weirdly loved Avery Bradley. Like everything about Avery Bradley, every 2K franchise I did, I would trade for Avery Bradley. Like I don't know what it was about him, just loved his game. Just maybe a try hard.
That's actually great. I remember when Avery Bradley had his last, like the players that don't play the last 2 NBA games of the season, they get like run and then they put up crazy numbers and then usually it doesn't mean anything. Avery Bradley's last 2 games of his rookie season, he like went off, and I remember I was like, I saw this coming, like I'm pushing his and then he became good, which was funny because it didn't seem that bright for a sec.
Yeah, Steph Curry makes sense though. Like I feel like everyone 5 to 8 years younger than me, it's like Steph Curry, LeBron, or like KD, which not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I like Steph. Kenneth Ward brings up hearing Noah say she grew up watching Steph Curry makes him feel old. Same. Yep. Same. Let's get into the W side of it though. First, I want to just say, like, I also freak basketball fan, like in high school, middle school. And then the Lynx just weren't really, I don't know. It was weird. I feel like the Lynx dynasty era, even in Minnesota, like you'd see people wearing like Maya Moore jerseys, but it didn't get nearly the run it was. And honestly, I think it's because they just like, there was just that stigma around the league of that point of just like, I don't know. It wasn't like cool to be a WNBA fan in college. And I don't know. I don't know if that's how it was over on the East Coast too, but like it did feel that way in Minneapolis. Was like it was almost like a hipster thing to be a Lynx fan or like a diehard basketball thing. And then I mean, I certainly regret it. Especially knowing how cheap the tickets were for those things. I would have been going to every game if it wasn't so ridiculous. McKinney brings up, what are you doing? Going live in the middle of the day? Are you trying to get me fired up? Yes, we're trying to get you fired up. We're going to talk Lynx. So first I would just want to talk Cheryl Reeve. I mean, the Lynx, as of this morning, they're the number 1 offense in the league by a bit. They're the number 1 defense in the league by a bit. They have the number 1 plus minus, number 1 net rating. They're number 1 in true shooting. I mean, number 1 rebounding team in the league. I mean, how kind of inexplicable is this that they're better than last year?
It's wild. And I actually I don't know. I think there's probably multiple ways to look at it. I do think Olivia Miles is a legitimate MVP candidate right now. And it's just, I don't watch a ton of college. I watch the tournament and then I go back and do like some scouting before the draft, but it's just not the same. Like I can't say that I had this sense that this was coming at all. What I will say, though, is that nobody expected that when we were discussing like a couple months ago that the Lynx lost 5 key players. It wasn't in our calculus that they lost 5 key players, but they also gained an MVP candidate, right? Like that wasn't the discussion because you don't get MVP candidates as rookies. Like, especially thinking about the rookies that we've seen the last few years in Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers, like those were bigger names and supposedly, more clear cut, like number 1 draft picks and all that. Like, who would have thought that Olivia Miles might end up having actually the biggest MVP case of those 3 players? And that's not even to say, like, I don't know how all their careers are going to pan out, but right now, I mean, she's on the best team in the league and she's spearheading that. So that's like number 1 when I think about the Lynx' success is like, in hindsight, if I had known she was going to be this kind of player, then like this kind of makes sense. And then the other one is Natasha Howard, who I keep going back to, like, when I forget who broke the Natasha Howard signing, but it was, I don't even know if like I even reacted to it. Like, I think I was just like, okay, like a classic, like get a vet because you lost your vets and, I'm sure she'll help keep them afloat. But it's like, no, she's actually really good. And I power ranked yesterday, like the best offseason acquisitions. I think she is the number 1 offseason acquisition. Jessica Shepard's in the mix, which is funny. But I actually think that Natasha Howard has been the most impactful player to go from one team to another. And so those 2, and then obviously like the system that just seems to not change regardless of who's in it. It makes sense now. Like, it's always like once your expectations are completely shattered, then it's like, oh, okay, I saw it happen. But I would never have seen this coming.
I vividly remember on every podcast appearance, TV appearance, being like, if they can just be 500 when Fee comes back, like that's a massive success. And they're awesome. You mentioned like the Olivia Miles side of it. I don't think anyone saw this type of production coming. I mean, what, you had her second in your MVP ladder last week? I mean, I've never seen this. Like, I've never seen a player just hit the ground and go back to like Chris Finch has this kind of cliche that he says of like, when you have a rookie, you expect like one okay game, one bad game, and one horrible game, and you just try to like live with the horrible one. Like, Liv has had, by my count, 10 awesome games and 2 okay games, which I've never seen it. Have you? Like, even in the NBA, like, rookies don't come in like
I haven't seen it. The main reason is, like, I've seen players come out and, like, you can tell right now they're generational scorers and they're putting up crazy numbers and all that. I think what's unique about Olivia Miles is that it's not her scoring, it's the way that she is running the show. I mean, the highlights are sick, and I think they're great for the game because I think a lot of people are going to be like, you know, she has a cool look, like with the goggles and everything, and she has a cool handle, and she's crossing players up like that part of it is cool. But in effect, she's running a very high functioning offense and elevating everybody around her. And, like, first of all, it's really hard to do that in general. Like, I don't know how many point guards in the WNBA consistently elevate their teammates, and that's not a commentary on the WNBA. That's just a commentary on, like, basketball today. Like, I think we moved away from that kind of player, right? Like, the best point guards on the men's side are not even point guards. Like, so that element of that's one piece of it. And then she obviously has the right pieces around her. And, like, you know, I think that's where the biggest jump is happening from college to the NBA, is that, like, she hasn't played with Natasha Howard before, right? Like, relative to her college teammates, like, no shade to any of them, but, like, Natasha Howard is a legitimate, 14-year WNBA vet, right? Like, that's somebody that has a skill set and an ability that she hasn't had around her. So, it's remarkable, and I think it's so good for the sport that she is kind of coming on the come up right now, because she's the kind of player that I think is really going to draw a different kind of viewer in, right? Like, we have obviously Caitlin Clark's, like, sharpshooting is something that is just, like, so spectacular that it got, it caught the world by the storm. I think Olivia has elements to her game that are going to bring people into the sport that haven't watched the WNBA before.
Dustin adds that Caitlin Clark fans are melting down about Olivia, so he's actively recruiting Lynx fans at this point, which, good on you. Like, Lynx FC, we can always use more people. I completely agree. I think, like, if there's ever a chance that point guards will become cool again, like, Olivia Miles is kind of that chance. Like, if she can get young kids to, like, value passing and, like, running an offense again, I think that would be awesome for the game. I mean, the other thing is just, like, there's so much swagger with her. Like, she trash talks. She's, like, hitting the emote button like 2 minutes into games. Like, she's just fun, which, not to say like Caitlin Clark isn't fun, because that's always, anytime you compliment a player, it gets kind of turned into like this versus that. But, like, I don't know, she's just incredible, which again, like, goes back to Cheryl of just, she just has this way of, like, you mentioned Natasha Howard, but also like Nia Coffey. Like, there's a world where Nia Coffey is like the 11th player on a bench and is just out of the league in a year. You look at like Tony Delaire, 31 years old, coming over from Europe. She just has this way of, like, almost like a computer processor of, like, this is someone that has a specific skill set. We'll put them into this piece and it'll work out fine, which, I mean, this year more than any, it's just been so impressive that she's been able to do it, right?
For sure. Yeah. And it's interesting because Cheryl has such, like, a wide encompassing impact on the organization. Like, there's the coaching, but then also she's the one that's handling a lot of the front office stuff, right? Like, it's so unique to have that, where if the product on the floor is not what we want it to be, like, she's the one that put it all together, right? From conception to execution. And on the flip side, like, you can kind of give her, like, most of the credit here, especially because they did have to have players walk, and it wasn't Minnesota's fault. When you look at the contracts that players like Alana Smith and Keisha Heidemann signed, it's it's a credit to like Cheryl, Reeve, and her and the Lynx for like putting those players in position to get those contracts, but they weren't going to be able to resign or field competitive offers. And honestly, I don't think anybody should have. I don't think I haven't really been locked in with the Lynx fans. I'm sure there's not animosity for those players to take those contracts, right? Because it's like the first time that any of these players have been able to make significant dollars playing basketball, right? And so it's just really cool how they managed to overcome those absences and get better. And I think when Nafisa Collier comes back, it's going to only help them because she's the kind of player that just does everything well. It's not like she's their starting point guard's been out all year. Now it's like, oh, what's going to happen with Olivia Miles? And it's like she's going to fit in really perfectly, I think, and just give them a little bit more of a margin of error. Like, because again, like someone else could get hurt right now, and you don't have that depth, so it's just going to be good when they're at full strength.
Yeah, that's kind of what K-Mac said last night. I asked her just about, the mentality of her kind of current life where she's getting double teamed off of screen. She's being bumped, grabbed, like they're guarding her like she is the best player in the league, which kind of what I've been saying all season, like no disrespect to K-Mac, but she's Kayla McBride. Like she's not the best player in the league, but I think last night was the first night Dallas kind of eased off of that. They were staying off her a little bit on the perimeter. They weren't doubling her or like hedging her as hard on these like off ball screens. And K-Mac has a season high 22 points, 4 assists, and just kind of cooks them in her own way. And that gets me thinking about your point of just like when Fee comes back, everything gets easier. And for like Liv, I mean, if she thought her reads were easy now, like it is kind of unfair that this team is rolling the way it is, and they're going to be getting the back-to-back runner-up MVP back.
Right. Yeah. It's honestly, it's a wild situation. And yeah, it also just goes to show you how much system can make an impact. Yeah. Like a lot of these teams are trying to figure out their identity. They have a new coach, they have a new GM, they have a bunch of like a hodgepodge of players together. Like the Lynx, for all they lost, there's still a lot of continuity there in the coaching staff. I think Courtney Williams has been like an underrated part of the success the Lynx have had this season. And I know, and I think you've shared this with me in the past that like fans can get on her, especially historically, like as a point guard for some inconsistency, for some erratic play. Like I think that the Olivia Miles addition has like completely, I don't want to say like absolved her, but like she's not going to be prone to making the same kinds of mistakes that have been costly before. So yeah, it's really cool. And I think with I love to see careers get revived, and like I feel like we have a couple of those examples this year on the Lynx and in years past, right? And that seems to be like, I can't imagine if you're a free agent not choosing Minnesota, because like the track record just kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, it is interesting because like I talked to Cheryl this week at practice of just like she kind of went on this like 2.5 minute answer that I didn't expect, but just talking about like how important finding players that meet the culture are, and how like she's made some mistakes and she's learned from those mistakes, that it takes years to overcome those mistakes when the culture gets upset. And like I honestly think that's what it is. Like if you're at a point in your career where you're just like, hey, this is my last chance, and you're willing to buy in fully, Cheryl can turn you into a superstar. Which you mentioned Court. I will say Lynx fans have taken a real quick turn on Court from like, we need a true point guard. Like Court isn't good enough to be next to Fee, to like, I think fans watching Court just cook backup point guards has been fun for them. So now everyone's on the Courtney Williams band.
They got their point guard, right? They weren't entirely wrong. Like they got one of the
best. They weren't wrong. That's what's been like fascinating, is just like the Courtney Williams season this year, where she's just like, she doesn't have to think as much. She just goes out there and scores, and then they leave her in when the backups come in, and she's just cooking them, which of course she's going to. She's an all-star caliber guard that's playing against like the 8th player on the opposing team. But like the luxury to have that is just, I just feel like so often with this Lynx team, I'm just kind of sitting here speechless going like, yeah, this is just insane.
Yeah. No, I would love to have a full
I feel like you're in the same boat.
No, I would love to have a full list of all of the WNBA vets that visited the Lynx facility, that had meetings with Cheryl Reeve and ultimately chose a different organization, and to see how that's panned out for them. Like, obviously we know about NECA because of Balloon Gate, but like in general, I'm sure there were others who were in the mix and chose to go elsewhere. And whether that was for market reasons, or they thought they'd have a bigger opportunity or more money or whatever else, like, this is like Natasha Howard now is like really reviving her career, right? And she was good last year too. Like, I think sometimes it got a little lost because there was so much going on in Indiana. But yeah, it's cool to see, and I would love to know like who else is in that mix, because I'm sure do you have reporting on like what other players were potentials? Like, was Gabby Williams in the mix for Minnesota?
They went after Gabby pretty hard, from my understanding. They also put some flyers out on Kelsey Plum to try and see if she was willing to come here. That died pretty quick. The last time Brianna Stewart was a free agent, they went after her super hard after Seattle. So I kind of assumed they went after Stewie again, but again, that died out really quick.
Sounds like the Liberty trio was like not really looking around.
Right. I mean, they do, like, they are. I think that's the weird thing with the Lynx is like Cheryl does kind of have a reputation of not getting stars in free agency. Like, she hasn't really been able to land any, and they do go after a lot of them. I do think there's also just like part of it where, you know, I don't think Cheryl's going to ever overpay for somebody, and I don't think she's ever going to like drop her morals to bring in somebody either. So I'm sure if she gets the yuck or whatever in a meeting, it probably gets shut down pretty quick, because, you know, it is. I think it's really undersold, like how hard it is to play for the Lynx. Like, they practice insanely hard. They always focus on defense. Like, they do like rebounding drills in practice still, which like most teams kind of just like, you know, assume you know how to box out at this stage of your career. And then like Cheryl coaches super hard. I don't think it is for everybody. And if you're like a certain level of superstar, do you want to go into a team where like you're just, you know, kind of stuck? Or not stuck, but just kind of like you're another cog and you're kind of treated that way, which like for Court, K-Mac, Fee, Liv, it works really well. But unfortunately, I think some players around the league look at that of like, I don't want to just have to like work my tail off and be just another person. I want to be the star, which that's fair. Players deserve to be the star, right?
Yeah, for sure. I totally get that. And it's not always about winning. Like, it's just not, especially like with the new CBA and brands and all that. But I think for a lot of players, especially if you're like in the twilight years of your career, like I think for those players, it makes a lot of sense to join this. Yeah, I was going to compare it to Heat culture, actually. less of what it is now, but there was like a couple year period where it was like, you have to be cut out for Heat culture, right? Like, everything is different, you know, and there was this feeling of like, kind of regardless of who Eric Spoelstra and the Heat signed, they would have like career seasons. I feel like the last few years have kind of gone away from that a little, but in the height of like the Celtics Heat rivalry, that was all we were always hearing about that.
Yeah, from like before the bubble to like 2023, it was always Heat culture. Anyone they bring in, it's just gonna work. It is. I also think the Lynx just have like a more like wholesome culture. Like, everyone does legitimately like love each other. Like, I think that's the other thing that like, it's so fun watching them, because it comes through the TV of like, oh, this team like legitimately really enjoys and loves playing together, which I did think some of that would fall apart with like the whole Power of Friends breakup, but evidently it has a lot more to do with like Court and K-Mac than anything else, because they're kind of the remaining pillars. Noah, I do want to throw us over to an ad read here. When we come back, I want to talk more about Tosh Howard, though, because I like what you brought up earlier, and I completely ignored it. And we're back with another ad read, this time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Links podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686.
I think you're muted.
Struggling.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
StreamYard is struggling with the ad reads today. So sorry for the awkward silence. Anyways, Natasha Howard, you mentioned that she's your biggest free agent pickup of this last offseason. And after last night's game, she got asked of just like if she still feels like she's in her prime, which 34 years old, been a while since she won that DPOY. The Dallas kind of adventure, and then last year with Indiana we're down seasons, and Tasha's answer was absolutely I do. I feel like I'm back home again. I'm happy where I'm at. I got the opportunity to actually showcase my game that everybody thought I lost last season, but I'm back and I'm better. And like that kind of just describes what you're saying. Like it's just fit, and I really do think like being happy playing basketball matters a lot, which for Tosh, I mean, you mentioned like they drafted an MVP candidate in Olivia, but she's also playing at like an all WNBA level, isn't she?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think she's been one of the most consistent forwards in the league on both ends. And part of that is I think when you have been a defensive player of the year, there is obviously a level of defensive you can reach, but as we're seeing with Atlanta Smith, like a lot of times it depends on the pieces around you, the system that's being played. Like defense is so complex, right? It can mean so many different things. On the offensive end, it does feel like she really hasn't lost a step. And I'm sure some of that is confidence, right? Like she, once you're in a good flow and it's like she's sitting here being like, well, I'm 34 years old and I'm like cooking these opposing forwards, regardless of kind of who's out there. And she has a playmaker that has really, really kind of elevated her game. It's just that's kind of how it plays out, right? And again, not to keep bringing up Atlanta Smith, but like you see the inverse of that. Like we know Atlanta Smith is a better player than the player that we're watching night in night out in Dallas. But like that's what happens when like the fit's a little tough, and then you're in your own head, and then there's the kind of the cascading thing of like now you're coming off the bench, and like that's just the way that it goes for basketball players. And I think we see it with shooters a lot, and we accept it like, okay, that shooter is on a cold streak or they're in a slump. But when it comes to like bigs and their ability to like rebound and defend, like we don't really expect that as much, but it's still a part of things. And you can see right now Natasha Howard is in like a consistent flow state, right? Like she's just been every night she kind of picks up where she left off.
I mean, honestly, I have been so impressed by just her ability to like, she might be one of the fastest rollers I've ever watched play basketball. Like she sets a screen and the way she's able to like whip around so quickly is just like, she's 34. She shouldn't have this type of agility still, but she's just able to do it. And I like what you said about like the flow state of, I do think some of it is like just game to game, game in, game out. She's just kind of locked in. Do you mind if we talk a little bit of Atlanta Smith real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, 9 minutes last night, goes 0 for 2, wasn't in foul trouble. I guess like Do you think there's something else going on, like a bigger injury than just the broken nose? Or do you think it's like a mental thing, or like, what's your perspective on it? Because I haven't been watching every Wings game, but when I have caught Wings games, she just looks so out of sync and just, I mean, to be honest, she just looks bad, which sucks because Land's awesome. She's an awesome person.
Yeah. No, I think for sure. I would probably say it's more mental than anything. Like, certainly in hindsight, maybe a lot of her impact was dependent on the pieces around her and the very specific system that the Lynx played defensively. So maybe that's the majority of it. But I think we see this sometimes. Like, how do you explain, like, I hate that I always have the NBA comparisons, but like, how do you explain like somebody like Markelle Fultz like forgetting how to shoot, or like the Ben Simmonses of the world, or like there's just so many examples of players who just completely lose their confidence. I mean, I just covered the Celtics all year. We were trying to figure out what the hell happened to Derek White. He used to be a really good shooter. Now he catches the ball and it's like he wants nothing to do with it. And it's one of those things where it's like we can ask a million times, we can ask everybody around the person. Sometimes there's not like a good explanation to give fans. Sometimes it's just like a cascading thing, and you just only hope that she'll be able to snap out of it. I think the part that's unique here is that defensively from the get-go, she wasn't very impactful, and that's kind of like that was the one thing where you assumed that regardless of where she was, that would not be a thing. So that's where I think it's a little bit unique. Maybe she has something personal on. Maybe there is more of an injury that has not been reported, but my guess would just be that like she's just struggling, and the worse it is, the more the noises. Now she's playing her former team that's absolutely crushing it. I'm sure that was hard to reckon with. She got her bag. I'm happy for her that she got that because that's life-changing money, but it certainly doesn't look like Dallas was the on-court move. And I honestly did not see that coming. Like, part of why I was really high on Dallas going into the season is I thought Jessica Shepard was going to be great, and obviously she has, but I thought Alana Smith was like a great like anchoring presence, and that hasn't quite panned out.
Yeah, the defense has been interesting because like Lan and Jess played last year together like a lot when Fee was out injured, and the defense didn't fall off hardly at all with the Lynx. Like, that was part of the case for like why Fee isn't getting MVP votes and why Fee isn't getting defensive player of the year votes, is like, well, she got injured and Jessica Shepard and Lan were able to hold it down. And you move that exact same front court to like Dallas, where like, I don't know, Arike's fine. She's fine defensively. Like, Paige is fine. Fudd is good. Like, it's not like they just have a bunch of scrubs out there on the wings that are like allowing layup lanes, but like when it's to the point where like Tosh goes 7 for 9 in the paint last night and then post game says it's fun to play against a team that doesn't protect the paint, like that's like kind of like hit the emergency button if you're Dallas. And in regards to Lan, like, I don't really know what the move is for Dallas. We kind of brought up on the live stream last night of like, maybe she's just dealt at the deadline already and you get salary and a fresh start, but it's hard for me to see it getting better. What about you?
Yeah, I am starting to reach the point where it feels like it's maybe just not going to fit in Dallas. I wonder what her trade value is, considering it's a big contract you're taking on for a player that played 9 minutes last night. So
it's literally the worst situation.
It's interesting. It's like I feel like on the NBA side, there's like more money dumping, money acquiring transactions. We haven't seen that really be a dynamic in the W, where teams are taking on contracts for draft picks and things. But maybe this will be one of the first ones to kind of play out like this. I can't even think of one example of a trade where like a big contract was dumped to just because he wanted to offload it and like they were willing to give up a pick with it or something like that. Because historically the big contracts haven't even been that big, and they've also been the best players in the league. Like, it was kind of unusual what happened this offseason where like more role players were getting big time deals, and like that was like, obviously Alana Smith was a pretty proven player, but she wasn't like a superstar, right? And to get that kind of money, like, it's tough. So yeah, I don't know how it's going to play out. Maybe they just stick it out. How many years are on her deal? Is it 3 years?
3.
Damn.
3.
her. Good for her.
I mean, literally, it's
Yeah. Maybe she gets it together. I mean, it's still the first quarter of the season, right? Like maybe she comes All-Star break and yeah, she comes back and she's a little bit more revitalized.
That's my hope, because like again, I went to their shoot around yesterday and like getting to talk to Lan again for the first time in a while. Like you kind of forget, like she is just an awesome person. Like she has a master's in psychology, super involved in like, bringing awareness to like sex trafficking. She's super funny, super charming. And it's just like to see her play 9 minutes is just like, man, what is going on that it's that untenable, where like she didn't play the second half and Dallas was, for at least like in the third quarter, like kind of better defensively in the second half without her, which yeah, it's just tough. Noah, we're kind of getting to the time where I want to wrap up here, but I did want to get kind of one more surprise question for you. Connecticut going to Houston, which Kenneth Ward, who's in the chat here, is going to be covering the Comets when they go back down to Houston. So Kenneth, appreciate you coming and hanging out. Also, Booth, that seemed like it was a really sketchy, like kind of a manipulative, sketchy way to get a team back to Houston. Like, I guess just how is like Northeast doing with that? Because like now you have the Liberty, which that's not really like, a Northeast team. Washington.
New York is never going to be Boston's team. It's like the opposite, right?
Like how is that kind of sitting with everyone? Because it feels really weird that Boston doesn't have a team. It feels really weird that Philadelphia doesn't have a team. Like
Philadelphia's going to have a team, right? Like they're one of the three that's coming up. But again, like the New England sports are huge. You have the Patriots, you have the Bruins, you have the Red Sox, and you have the Celtics. And I think has not been like a ton of momentum across the region, around the sun over the past few years, in part because they're in Mohegan and they haven't had like the biggest brand. They haven't had like the biggest name players from like for like casual fans. But I think it could have started to build more over the past few years, especially like they had the TD Garden games. Those were huge successes. And I was starting to think, okay, you know what? Like, I feel like I can start to sell the Sun to the Celtics fans as like their team. Even if they're not playing in Boston and it's a little bit of a trek to get there. And then once they go up for sale, I was like, okay, perfect. They're going to obviously stay in New England, hopefully selfishly Boston. But like, even if they were to go to Hartford or stay in the area, like that would still be New England's team. The concept of there not being in a team in New England now for the coming years is just so wild, because it's like you're talking about one of the biggest sports cities in the country, and you're talking about the Celtics fan base, which is one of the most rabid fan bases, and then it's like it just doesn't. It's just kind of wild that there's going to be 18 WNBA teams and none in New England, and I think it's a missed business opportunity because I think that would have been great for the league, and I have like some reporting on it, but some just like conspiracy theories as well, so like making that distinction. But I do think a lot of it comes down to the WNBA wanting all these new teams to be owned by the same owners that own NBA teams, and as much as they can control that moving forward, like they can't do that for teams in hindsight as much, but all the new teams, like I don't think they wanted there to be a separate ownership group for the Sun being in Boston and the Celtics, and that's what that would have happened. And I think they'd much rather have Bill Chisholm, the new Celtics owner, get a WNBA team in 5 years. But it sucks for the region. I think a lot of Celtics fans, because that's my main audience, they're always like, who should we be rooting for? And I'm like, just pick some players you like and follow them around. Like, go be like high schoolers, because there's not really a team in Boston, and not really a team like for the region. Like New York's like the biggest opponent, right? Like right now, I'm going to bars to watch, the NBA Finals, and it's like every single waiter and bartender is like just rooting against the Knicks, right? Because that's what Boston is. So yeah. That's why, I think the Lynx are a good team. I don't think Minnesota and Boston have a nice little, Kevin Garnett. Like, we have some connections.
Yeah.
So
Kevin Garnett, we were rooting for the Celtics that year. David Ortiz. I mean, he got traded and everyone blamed the Twins, released. I can't remember if he got traded or released. That was way too many years ago. But like, people were rooting for the Red Sox during that time. Like, there's a good You guys can repay the pipeline and hop on the Lynx bandwagon.
Yeah. I got you guys. So yeah, but you know what? It'll be, I think Houston deserves a team as well. I just like, I don't like the way that play that. Honestly, I think there's a lot of advantages to having separate ownership groups. So that's like a whole other topic. But
do you think they'll like ownership groups? Do you think it's more of like, I guess like there's a couple ways to look at it. Do you think it's more of like logistics? It's just easier if like the same people that play in a venue own the same teams that are going to be playing.
A lot of times, like if you're Adam Silver and you're going to make a decision that will positively benefit NBA teams but may consequently hurt WNBA teams, but it's the same owners and so it's their bottom line doesn't get impacted, then it's not a problem, right? But if you're saying like, okay, the new NBA scheduling quirk is actually going to push out the WNBA a little bit, or like certain games are not going to get the same exposure, like then it's like, okay, hold up, you know, like that doesn't really work. And I think a lot of times you see, on one hand, the NBA has like uplifted the WNBA financially and all that, but on the other hand, it's always been an afterthought, right? And so that's why you see teams like the Aces or like the Storm back in the day, like where like actually them having independent owners that were NBA teams, like you saw there was a level of like prioritization that you just haven't seen from like the dual ownership group. So I think as the WNBA is growing naturally, like teams are going to care, ownership groups are going to care more about the WNBA in general, because like you look at the Fever right now and the Pacers, like obviously the Fever, you're not going to like afterthought the Fever. But there, I think it has had some negative consequences historically as well.
I'm glad you went that way with it, because that's kind of my conspiracy theory too, of just like,
yeah, this is just a conspiracy.
The same person's money, you don't have to worry about it as much. Noah, I do want to give you the chance though. You basically write everywhere and do everything now, but where can people find you? Anything new coming out? Please plug your lovely YouTube show. Wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, number one thing I'd plug is I have a WNBA channel, WNBA Today on CLNS. The premise is bringing on beat writers to talk about their teams. Try not to do any clickbait, which is hard on the YouTube. I know you know this, Andrew, but like it's a wild place out there. So if you want to just know like, okay, what's going on with different teams, I feel like as a beat reporter, I would like that to be more thing on the NBA side. When I cover the Celtics, I'm trying to do the reverse, where it's like I'm not having takes on the Lynx. Andrew's coming on and having takes on the Lynx. So yeah, check that out, and then you can find me on social media at Noa Dalzell.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. For anyone that jumped into this late, Abby, how are you unaware of Noah? She's like one of the people in the WNBA space. Go follow her, Abby. I think she's on I think Noah's on Blue Sky. You're on Blue Sky, right?
Blue Sky, yeah.
Go follow Noah on Blue Sky too.
I like if you jump as well.
If you jumped into this a little bit late, it does get posted up on YouTube and X, as well as Buzzer, as soon as I end the stream here. If you want to listen to it tomorrow, Thursday, I don't think there's a Lynx game. Nope, they don't play until Saturday. So if you want to listen to this tomorrow, feel free to listen to it anywhere you get your podcast. It'll be out at 7 a.m. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.